Next on the Power Play, he is one of the top 5 African-American saxophonists in the world, Walter Beasley. Walter Beasley discusses his life in Boston, his move to Arizona, and how the pandemic has affected so many musicians. His life, his story, and his music. Walter Beasley, next on the Power Play. From the studios at Hull Bay Productions, this is the Power Play.
Welcome to the Power Play. I am your host, Tonya McGrath. When Walter Beasley left Boston after decades, the Bean truly lost a major star. Walter Beasley is an award-winning saxophonist, singer, and instructor whose musicianship has been described as an anomaly, says friend and fellow saxophonist Branford Marsalis. Marsalis describes Walter as a successful performing musician who possesses the rare skill of understanding the musical process beyond the intuitive. Walter has released several albums and since 1998 has been one of the top 5 best-selling African-American saxophonists in the world. Walter came to Boston to attend the Berklee College of Music and stayed. The student became the teacher with what was supposed to be a temporary teaching gig that turned into over 3 decades of passing along his talents to thousands. At the time, he was the highest-selling full-time professor and recording artist in history, having balanced an exceptional career as a recording artist and performer with an influential presence in music education. But life changed, and Walter took upon the extraordinary opportunity to take care of his dad in his last years. He shared much of their time together through posts and social media, and much to the sadness of his fans, he had to announce to the world his father had passed. He shared spending this time with his dad was simply a true gift. So Beasley's address may have changed, but his music and his inspiration are more impressive than ever. I'm so happy to introduce my guest today, recording artist Walter Beasley. Walter, welcome to the Power Play.
Thank you so much for having me, dear friend. Thank you.
And I tell people, like, this must have been the 4th or 5th time that I've interviewed you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a little mini reunion.
It was at church last time, if I recall correctly.
That's right. That's right. And the first time, I think, was in 1996. We did a documentary on you for Say Brother. Yeah.
Brother,
so, and I just appreciate you taking the time. Obviously, I know that you are an incredibly busy and talented man. So I really thank you for that. But I just want to begin with asking, like, what is your life like now? How is Arizona? How is this whole kind of transformation?
That may take 45 minutes. Like you said, coming out here to be able to help take care of my parents was amazing opportunity. And Arizona is not Boston. Let's just put it that way. I was very conservative. It's Reagan country. It's Trump country. It was a big adjustment. Both my parents had dementia, so things were much different for them and much clearer in the sense that they knew what they didn't know, kind of like, and it was comfortable for them. Mm-hmm. And I met some great people here who happened to be conservative. But living in Massachusetts, it was a big culture change coming back here. Now I'm born and raised an hour from Arizona,
right?
Now called El Centro, California, which was extremely conservative as well. So once you leave that and you taste the fruits of liberalism or whatever in Boston, you have to come back and make that big switch. Mm-hmm. It was a culture shock, but to be able to spend the last couple of years with my parents after being away from them for 40 years was just incredible. So, I mean, if I have to weigh everything, it just, coming back here has been the joy of my life in a sense. And now being a part of my great nephew and my great niece's life, is incredible as well. And the music, reflects that.
Do you miss Boston at all? Besides the weather.
I don't miss the weather. I do miss the spring and the fall. Mm-hmm. I miss the relationships I cultivated with some people there. I don't miss Berklee. I don't miss I don't miss that what it turned into. Mm-hmm. But I do miss some of the people who I had had the pleasure of getting to know intimately. I do miss some of the people that I dated, but I don't know if I should, you know. So it's good being far away from them, you know. So I'm not tempted to give them a call and say, "Hey, what you doing?" So that's new, you know, and actually very new because, you know, a couple of people, you know, we kept in contact the whole time. So, you know, they were single, I was single. So it was easy to get caught up in some stuff that maybe wasn't beneficial long term. So now the challenge is, because here I'm an hour away from my home that I grew up in. So everybody knows me. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows, you know, if I go somewhere, you know, or not everybody knows me, not in Yuma, but in El Centro. And it's only an hour away. So if I am tempted to get into something that may not be beneficial, then it's known before I even do it.
Yeah.
Boston was much different. Boston, you can have a full kind of, you know, thing going on, but, you know, here, and I'll tell you one thing, Tony, it's forced me to be even more disciplined than I was in Boston because, you know, my family's here. The twins are watching me. You know, they're 9 years old. So there's something, you know, when you grow up, and you can't go back to the kind of stuff that you were doing, you know, years and years ago, especially once you see your parents pass. You know, it's a different kind of reality. So I'm very fortunate to be where I am. There are things like I just said are very, very different. I have to cultivate new relationships. I started a couple other businesses, and, you know, today's a good day.
I want to talk a little bit about being a performer in this pandemic and how it's affecting you and others. How does that process work? I mean, a lot of what you do is based on being able to share your music with the masses, and people can't do that right now. So how is that affecting you?
I don't think there is such thing as a performer in the pandemic at this point, not for me anyway. I think it's afforded me the ability to look really deep inside myself to ask myself, why did I do this in the beginning? You know, is my music reflective of, you know, what humanity is going through right now? What could I do to do things differently once this is over and be better? And, you know, it's forced all of us to, you know, to look inside ourselves. And artists are no different. I don't really like going on Facebook doing the whole, you know, not GoFundMe, what is it? Cash App thing. Let me play a couple of songs I mean, it just doesn't sound good, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, so my goal right now is to look inside myself and to make sure that what I do, you know, as it relates to recording, reflects what I've been through.
Wake up in the morning, love, and the sunlight hurts my eyes. When something without warning, love, bears heavy on my mind. Then I look at you, and the world's alright with me, yeah. Just one look at you, and I know it's gonna be a lovely day. You can sing if you want to. It's gonna be a lovely day. Lovely day, lovely day, a lovely day. Whoa, it's gonna be a lovely day. When the day that lies ahead of me seems impossible to face, when someone else instead of me, baby, always seems to know the way. Oh, then I look at you, and the world's alright with water. Yeah, just one look at you, and I know it's gonna lovely day, yeah. It's gonna gonna be a lovely day. Sugar, a lovely day. Whoa, it's gonna be a lovely day. Yeah. A lovely day. It's gonna be a lovely day, baby. I've been looking for you. Where are you? I've been looking all over Cambridge, baby. I've been on Putnam Ave. I've been on Franklin Street. Alewife. I know you say, oh my God. Oh, baby. Yeah, yeah. I love you in the morning. I love you just because you're you. And anyone who tries to do anything to me, baby, all I have to do is think of you.
What do you and other musicians talk about this, this space that we're all in right now?
Not music.
Yeah.
Not music. Some of us believe that it's a pandemic, they call it. Some of us believe, but what it is, whether we differ or not, is a reset button. Musically, artistically, all that. It's just a big reset button, just to see, we can't play anymore. I was talking to an OG the other day, older gentleman, and who's been in the game longer than I. And I said, "Yo, man, what do you think is going to be our future?" And he said, "Bruh," he said, "We don't know. We just have to wait." So he's not going back out on tour. I'll just say it's not G. It was not G. So he's not going back on tour until there's a vaccine, and he's not sure when he's going to take the vaccine. And pretty much we said the same thing. So, we have to err on the side of keeping our family safe rather than to go back out and take some chances. Some of the younger cats are going out on the road now, but that's a hard one,
Yeah. I want to go back to just your move to Arizona and, you're being able to really spend some really quality time with your parents. But you talked a lot and you shared a lot on social media about, just these moments with your dad. Tell us just a little bit about him. Like, who was he and what was that relationship like with him?
My father was a man's man. Grew up in Arkansas and Utah, and he just was, strong. Worked in the fields, educated man as well. So he taught me to be real tough and and responsible. So and we had our problems throughout life, as all fathers and sons do, father and sons do. But when it came time to come home, I came home to take care of him, and he had dementia, so. Most of the time, but a lot of time he didn't even recognize who I was. So,
was that tough? Was that tough for you?
Tough. Yeah, very tough. The first time that happened, I went out in the garage in San Diego. My mother also was alive at that time. And my mother kept telling him, no, Beasley, that's your son. No, Beasley, that's your son. No, that's Carl. So the first time it happened, I just went out and I lost it in the garage. I said, okay. But then I asked myself, okay, what's most important? His stability or your ego? So you become Carl. So that's what I did. I became Carl. And after the first couple of times, I just kept reminding myself, this is about his life, not mine. And it became easier. So my first responsibility was to take care of them, to make sure that they were okay and to make sure that their lives were comfortable. And that meant that I couldn't go out on tour anymore. So I didn't go out on tour for a year and a half, I believe, because my mother got sick first and she passed of cancer. And then when she passed, I didn't have quite enough time to mourn because I knew he was in a bad way.
Yeah.
So by the time, things kind of settled themselves out, he was able to move in with me. I created a company to help take care of him. We spent some great times together, talking about stuff. And actually one of our last conversations, he said, "How old are you, Walt?" And this was before he got sick. And I said, this was even kind of on a good day. And I said, "I'm 58, Pop." And I remember him saying, "Damn." Thinking to myself, wow, that's deep, and things like that. I treasure those times. And who gets a chance to leave home, go to Boston for 40 years, and come back and spend 2 years quality time with your parents, and be able to help them in their transition. It's a blessing above all blessings. And I had to make a decision because there's some artists who opted to stay on the road, so on and so forth, because they had other siblings to do or whatever. But I made the decision to just stop and just go. And it's probably the best decision I made.
One of the stories that you shared on one of your blog posts was seeing your dad cry only twice in your lifetime. And it was around the idea of when President Obama, then the Senator Obama, was running for president. But why was that so profound for you? Why was that moment that you needed to capture that moment in that post?
Well, the first time actually I saw him cry was Martin Luther King's death. But for me, and what's so important for me, that whole thing was, and I tell people this all the time, I lean kind of conservative in most areas, but for me it was, and for him, it was the promise of the country, that, that we could do this, so that, someone like us could actually be in that seat. And for him, doing what he had done over the years and being able to see himself in President Obama was huge. Being able to see myself in President Obama was huge. Forget the political aspect of it, although you can, but you have to be it. You have to see it to be it. So that's what was so important to me, and what is so important to me. And now, one of the things that I kind of, what I don't like is that we were much more supportive of President Obama than we are of Vice President Kamala Harris. That's just as important, if not more, than what President Obama did, for me anyway. And I find it a little bit difficult to swallow that, that we aren't being as supportive in her accomplishments as we were for President Obama.
Right.
That was difficult, man. You talking about, I just think about a Black woman, what she had to go through to achieve what she's achieved. So
Absolutely.
But that was important to me. It was important to him, and it's important. And I thought about the kids coming up to now. What does that represent to me? What my responsibility is to, the children coming up. Especially my great niece and great nephew. So I think it's a reminder to all of us that we have work to do.
Were your parents proud of your career, of you, and just everything that you created?
In a post that I don't know how proud my father was, but I know he was proud when I came home.
Yeah. I want to switch a little bit to music and politics.
Right.
And I read something that you wrote recently, and I'll quote it. Music has been so very good to me that is why it's so hard to stomach individuals and institutions who use it as a political football. What did you mean by that?
Oh, you going there, huh? When I first went to college, I went there because of the promise of it and the music. And in the last 10, 15 years, I was just thinking about this actually. They made a decision to make the institution huge at the expense of the music. And they used Black music to make, this institution, this global, blah, 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 blah. And they gutted it. They took the soul of the institution, which was Black music, and they threw it away. I'll give you a perfect example. Some of the musicians have jumped on the teaching bandwagon because they needed to financially. But now that they're starting to play again, I don't hear them talking about teaching anymore. You know what I mean? So it's not only the institution, but individuals as well. Look, this is not a game. This is our music. This is our history. It's time that we really, take it seriously and pass it on, because if we don't, no one will. And that's what I kind of meant by that. Using the music to benefit you and benefit your point of view, and then throwing it away as if it were some kind of thing that doesn't matter anymore. And it's very special to me, and that's why I said that.
Has this political season affected you? Have you gotten really involved in the madness, I would say, of the Trump administration and this transition that is just a debacle? Have you been?
No. I had to separate myself from that. I got involved politically. Down here, you got to establish a party. So it's either you're Republican or Democrat. And I had to sign up for the Democratic Party for the first time in my life. In Massachusetts, as you know, you vote who you want to vote for.
Right.
So for the first time in my adult life, I had to register. So I registered Democrat, of course. And that was the first time. And once I did that, and once I made my choice, I just did it, and I kind of walked away from the whole process, because you can get caught up in that stuff so much, whereas you just you lose yourself. And
it's exhausting.
It really is. So I started turning off the TV.
Yeah.
And focusing on me, focusing on my family, focusing on the kids, and that way I could be positive and stay positive, because it'll kill you if you watch too much of that.
You came to Boston, Berklee College of Music.
Right.
You were at Berklee as a student at the time with some major talent. Talk us about those times. I know I've asked this of you in past interviews, but I just think that whole moment, and those competitions and everything with.
When I came to Berklee, they call it the golden age now. You have Branford Marsalis, Greg Osby, Rochelle Farrell, Mark Ledford, rest in peace. Oh man, I'm just Ryan Hart. I mean, you're talking about, and most of the people that I'm mentioning, or a couple of people that I mentioned, people may never hear. I mean, were better than us. So it was an incredible time, and it was just incredible. Boston still had black music. It was just, you had WILD, RBB. Boston was just incredible. You had this the remaining elements of the Chitlin circuit, Highland Tap, which was my favorite spot, for the music, of course.
Yes. Yes.
Four Corners. Oh man, Roscoe's. You had music in Cambridge, but I stayed on the other end. So it was like a great time for me. Then things started to change with gentrification, all that kind of stuff. So, and the music disappeared, and at that point, then when the school started to make moves like that, I just said, and I got famous in Boston. So I always say California raised me, and Boston is where I became a man. So, and it was beautiful. We fell in love for the second time, I guess, in Boston. East Coast woman and that whole thing. Hey man, it was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful time in my life.
How has your writing and composing and recording changed being in Arizona?
Yes, man, you got tough today. Real tough. Being close to my mother and father, I wrote tunes called, En La Noche. En La Noche was the last night she was alive, and I remember she was struggling for breath, and thinking that somewhere someone's struggling to have a child, and I'm here with my mother who is struggling, to stay here. And, it's just all those things all of a sudden started to hit me. And it was that allowed me to say, okay, look, life is going to move on, and you have to be a part of it. And even when I wrote It's All Right, when she was passing, maybe a couple of weeks before, I remember thinking to myself, I can't write something like this. It's so bluesy. So I had to speed it up so people could get a sense of, yes, no matter what you're going through, it's going to be all right. Things like that I started to think about, and I hadn't really thought about in that aspect before. And the fact of the matter is, we're all going to walk that walk. So, we really need to get serious about, and not so serious about, the way we live this life, if that makes sense.
Is the creative process different for you?
This is the first time where it's been very difficult for me to create since he passed. I just wrote a little something yesterday, and I've kept it up, but it's been really, really hard because you start to question, well, why is it that you really became a musician anyway? You know, it makes them proud and all that kind of stuff, but when they're gone, do you really want to continue doing this? So, and I started another company, a healthcare company that takes up the majority of my time, and I'm really, really, really excited about that because I'm able to help people stay here, help people stay in their homes, help people live a quality life at the stage that my parents were at when I came back. So, you know, I have different hobbies now and different priorities. And yes, music still I enjoy, but, you know, I don't spend as much time as I did on it before.
Do you miss teaching at all?
I still teach out here.
Right.
Teach on Zoom, and I teach, I teach at Zoom, on Zoom. But I do not miss teaching in the college because it honestly just got boring because the curriculum did not reflect, how should I put this? Humbly speaking, the curriculum did not reflect my accomplishments or the accomplishments of, say, Layla Hathaway, Branford Marsalis, and others who came through there. And we just start, you know, accepting anybody who could pay the fee, $70,000 to get into Berklee, and that's not why I started teaching. That's why I left. I left a lot of money on the table. People were like, no, at the institution, some people were like, Walter, you can't leave. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, because I quit before I came to California. I made a decision to get out of there. And I told him, I said, look, I didn't start teaching, or I didn't teach to be a part of corporate America, you know, view on what teaching is and what it is not. I didn't start teaching to teach people who come from families who can afford $80,000 a year to come to college and learn music.
Right.
That's not why I started teaching. And then they started this whole thing where they called them, actually teachers called them scholarship musicians. So when they come in, they call them scholarship musicians because they're on scholarships. You know, most of them are of color. So you treat them a different way than you treat those who are paying $70,000, $80,000. Wow. And when I started saying that, I'm like, you know, I'm out. You know, these kids are just as talented, not more so than people who are paying the money. And when me and Branford and I forget, that's one thing that suffers when you leave, your grammar. When Branford and I came to college, they wanted us to go out there because, you know, we were this and we were that, and they were bringing people in. Now they bring the scholarship students in as a favor to the community. No, that's not what it was about when we came there, and that's not what it is.
I remember visiting you a few years ago, several years ago, and you allowed me and my camera people to come in, and you were teaching a class. And what really struck out to me is the way you brought out their musicianship, that you really allowed people to just kind of go for it, just push it to the max. And you know, and I think that's one of the reasons why people describe you as a master influencer, because you're able to bring that out in people. Where did that part come from?
That part came from my teacher, and it became more and more difficult to teach that way because you can push. Then you had students who came from different backgrounds who said, you know what, he's pushing too hard and I'm feeling uncomfortable. And I was like, oh, Steve, that's a buzzword. I'm like, okay, so that means my style of teaching, it's really not making a difference anymore. And I'm probably not going to be allowed to teach that way. So that's when I said it's time to go. And this is the important part. I was a part of the real world. I was a part of the real community out here, you know, that they were getting ready to enter into. And I knew how tough it was going to be for them. So for me to sugarcoat it and just to say, okay, look, I know that you're going to go back to your mother's house and play this music and play this game and live in the suburbs for the rest of your life. So why don't you just learn this test and I'll give you the A, and you go back to the suburbs and pay Roger Brown $70,000 a year to be here, and I'll go home. I couldn't teach like that. That's just, I couldn't do it. And bravo for people who can, I guess, but no, that's not the game. And to be out here and to know how difficult it is to navigate this world. I wasn't going to lie anymore to the students. Musicians, especially now, this is one of the greatest times in history because we get a chance to educate the future musicians the way we know they need to be educated, away from major institutions. We can become the institutions we once were a part of now on Zoom, and teach the people and teach the musicians, black, white, brown, whatever, the way the music should be taught and the way they should teach it once they get our age. So the expression, the opportunities to do what we need to do to make the music better are here. The challenge is, are we going to be disciplined enough to accept the responsibility of not only playing the music, expressing ourselves through the music, but teaching it?
The Power Play typically ends with asking our guests 3 questions. So I have 3 quick questions for you. I don't know if the answers are going to be quick, but my first question is, if there were no music, who would Walter Beasley be?
NFL superstar.
Okay.
Y'all look at her face. Those of you.
That's so random. I was just like.
In my mind, that's what I would have been.
Okay. All right.
It would have never happened. Go ahead.
Is there an artist, living or dead, that you wish you could or would have collaborated with?
Grover.
As That's Grover Washington Jr. for
Grover
our
Washington.
audience.
Yeah, I didn't get enough time with Grover.
Yeah.
I'm 3 or 4 times there.
All right. So my last question, or ask, I should say, and you're going to yell at me, but every time I see you, and I know we're coming to an end, I ask you to sing.
No, she's not going to do that. I told you I've been up since 4:30 in the morning.
Sing that last note for Don't Say Goodbye.
I knew that was coming. Oh, man. And my assistant is over there teaching. She's going to be like, Walter's in there singing on the... Oh, man, I don't even know. Girl, I ain't warmed up or nothing. This beautiful love that we...
Yes.
Oh, man.
Yes. Thank you.
Sorry
Thank you. Walter Beasley, it is always so much fun interviewing you. You can learn more about Walter, his awards, his accolades, and most importantly, his music at walterbeasley.com. We will share the link on our website at thepowerplayshow.com. Walter, thanks again for the amazing music you're sharing with us and continue to share with us. And I will speak for Boston when I say we miss you.
If I could say one thing to my family in Boston, people in Boston,
yes.
Thank you so very much. I didn't get a chance to thank you when I left because of, I left the city because of what I was facing. But I am so proud to have been a part of the Boston community. I'm so proud to have been a part of Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, Cambridge. I'm so proud to have been able to meet the people who have been responsible for the man that I am in my adult life. I'm very, very appreciative. I'm thankful. And I do miss you guys. Yeah.
As always, you can listen to past episodes of The Power Play wherever you subscribe to podcasts, including iTunes and iHeartRadio. Also, remember, we are now airing on BroncoEyeRadio.com each Saturday at 5 p.m. So be sure to tune into The Power Play Show on Thursdays for a new episode, wherever you subscribe to podcasts, or at thepowerplayshow.com, or listen to us on BroncoEyeRadio.com each Saturday at 5. And that's it for this edition of The Power Play. But first, I have this think about it moment. And it's about the man, Walter Beasley himself. I met Walter when I was a young producer back at WGBH in Boston. He was so nice and genuine with me. And in the more than 25 years since we first met, he hasn't changed at all. I can reach out to him for an interview, and he's there. He's one of a kind in this era of stardom and fame. Why? I believe it's because he didn't have to boast or scream about his music. It simply and beautifully spoke for itself. I look forward to having Walter on again because I know if I ask, he'll always say yes. Until next time on The Power Play, I'm Tonya McGrath. Put on a mask and be kind to others.
Always seems to know the way. Oh, just wanna look at you, babe. And the world's all right. Oh, just one look at you, and I know it's gonna be a lovely day.